Hi, I'm Patty Tucker from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a teacher here. I teach a lot of youth bridge, and I'm joining you today to talk to you about hopefully some information to help make your classes more fun and more successful. So here we go. Setting up for success. So first, never forget that playing bridge is supposed to be fun. And teaching bridge is also supposed to be fun. When you begin to teach bridge, you might be an excellent player, but that's not what you have to have in order to teach beginning bridge. You really just need a basic, solid foundation of bridge knowledge. And you need patience, respect for your students' efforts, and the ability to put yourself in the mindset of a new student. Have some empathy. Remember what it was like when you were learning. And one of the things that's really hard is not to share all your bridge knowledge. You have to kind of suppress your ego, smother it a little bit. You need to stick to the basics. Beginning bridge players don't need to know about a squeeze or that there's an end play on a hand. They need to know that they need to pull trumps if they don't have anything they need to trump. So stick to the basics. And it's really hard, but you need to let them make mistakes. The way that people learn is by making mistakes, figuring out what went wrong, and how to fix it. That's how you learned. That's how I learned. That's how they're going to learn best and retain the knowledge. You're teaching adults versus teaching kids. Well, kids, there's some pluses and there's some minuses. The pluses. Kids are used to studying and learning. They're still at school. They're in that mindset of we learn something new, we go home, we study it, we do better. They're less embarrassed by mistakes typically. They're used to not knowing how to do everything and that they're going to have to try again to get it right. They understand gaming and strategy. I think the video games that almost every kid in the world plays now really help them build that level of strategy, thinking about how am I going to beat the game. They're more accepting of new ideas. Again, that's part of their still in school, still learning and studying. They're enthusiastic about bridge. They typically love the game. They're very excited to be there, excited to be playing. They're fearless. They don't care if they go down. They want to win. They want the big score. And they're so darn cute. How can you not love it? Minuses, they have a shorter attention span. Even more than adults, they're not going to suffer fools quietly. They want to get on to be doing something. They want to know everything immediately. You tell them one thing, they nod, they think they've got that, they're ready to move on to the next one. Remember that they don't have control over their time. Their parents are the ones that have to drive them to class, that have to wake them up for a game, that have to get them to a tournament, et cetera, et cetera. The kids typically can't dictate, even if they love bridge, that I'm going to go and do bridge right now. That's not in their control. They may bend to peer pressure. If there's one kid who's like the leader of the pack, the big man on campus, and he doesn't like bridge, then it might be harder to get them to show their interest. They're going to be interested, but to get them to express that interest and kind of be willing to step outside the rest of the group, it's hard for kids sometimes. It's very obvious when they're bored. They squirm in their chairs. They kick their feet. They scrunch down, into the chair. I've even had spitball fights before. They're going to let you know if they're bored. You don't have to worry about that. And remember that their vocabulary is not as extensive as adults in some cases. Words that you might use in an adult class, they might not be within their vocabulary. So make sure that you keep your vocabulary at a level for the students you're teaching, the age group you're teaching. Teaching tips. Limit your talking to 5 minutes, then have the students do something. It's easy for them to get distracted and bored. And by the way, these teaching tips, 8 to 80. Doesn't matter if you're teaching kids or adults. These teaching tips are good for both. Communicate important information multiple times in multiple ways. You cannot repeat important information enough. You want them to remember it. And one of the ways that will happen is if you repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. Avoid putting students on the spot. Don't call on a specific student, okay? You may think that asking someone how many points do you have in your hand is a harmless question. But if they've miscounted their hand or know how many points are in their hand but can't grasp it right at that moment, or if they've just frozen, it's not good. It's just not a good policy. So don't do it. Find a positive spin when correcting a wrong answer. For instance, if someone says, I should overcall one club. I have 12 points and 3 clubs. Don't say, no, that's wrong. Say something like, that would be a perfect opening bid. If you were the opener, bidding 1 club would be perfect on this hand. However, you're overcaller. And remember, overcaller needs, and about this time, they're going to say 5 cards, and you say yes. So validate that they have some information right in a certain context, but they just need to tweak, this wrong in this context. Don't assume students know something that you haven't specifically covered. We all think that people know cards, that everyone's played cards, because we did when we were growing up. Not true. I had one lady in a class that did not know the difference between a spade and a club. She had never played cards before. They were just the black suits, and she didn't know which was which. So it took me quite a bit of time, probably 2 or 3 hands, to realize that's what her problem was. What's your vocabulary? Don't use bridge words before you explain what they mean. Majors, minors. For bridge players, that's our vocabulary, and that has a different meaning than a random person's vocabulary, right? Major just means important. For majors, us means hearts and spades. Make sure that you always explain the context in which you're using those words. Pull information from the students rather than pushing information on them whenever you can. It's better if they can come up with answers themselves. Remember, some aspects of play are intuitive, but bidding is not. So you may have to tell them certain guidelines and rules for bidding, but sometimes the play aspects, they can come to the conclusion if you just give them a little place to start. Use catchy phrases or mnemonics as memory tools. This is a must. People love things that rhyme or that they can remember. Things like second hand low, third hand high, 8 ever, 9 never, high five. Any of those that you can give them as something to hang a thought on are good. You utilize auditory, tactical, and visual techniques to teach. You'll see one of the reasons in just a moment. We're going to talk about the idea of using different techniques to teach, but also when you change things up, it wakes their brain up. It makes them pay back attention. You may have been talking and talking and talking, and their mind's starting to wander, and then you have them do something, and that's a different part of their brain that kind of sparks awake and wakes them back up. Limit content to 1 or 2 concepts or techniques per class. There used to be a study that people could remember 7 things at one time. That's how many new ideas or things they could hold in their head. And that if it was grouped, that was even better, like a telephone number. Modern theory is more like 3 or 4. If they can leave your class with 2 new things, or even 1 new thing that they've got, and they're going to remember it, you're successful. If every time they leave your class, they have some new thing that they have learned and can master and take home with them, you've been successful. Score the hands. Scoring the hands helps them cement in the strategy. It helps them cement in the importance of playing majors versus minors. It helps them remember priority of contracts or the bidding ladder or majors and minors. Scoring the hands is an important piece of bridge. Let the students play as much as possible. That's the fun part of bridge. We all like to play, right? It also allows them something fun to do where they can socialize with their friends before they go home. And it gives them a chance to relax a little bit. Now, some tips specific to kids. See, I repeated this one. Why? Because it's very important. Avoid calling on a specific child unless their hand is up. Maybe you have a kid in your class, Sally, who knows everything. You know that she's got it down. She understands bridge, she understands these concepts, she's got it. And you say, Sally, explain such and such to the class. You don't know. Maybe she's shy. Maybe all of a sudden, all that knowledge that she knew left her for a moment. And she's like a deer in the headlights, standing there, can't speak. Think how embarrassing that is. It's not worth taking the chance on embarrassing or making a child feel self-conscious when you can avoid it. So do. Use open-ended questions to spark student thinking about an idea or a concept, but remember to pause, like 15 or 20 seconds at the end, kind of the open end to that, so they can think. What you want is for you to tell them or say the answer at the same moment that their brain has pulled that answer forward. Provide opportunities to play the actual game. It's important. That idea that kids just want to throw cards, no, they want to win. They do want to win. They play baseball to win. They take a test to get a good score. They play a video game to beat the game. We all know we can't win every time. We all know it is still fun to play, even if you don't win, if you think it played pretty well. But giving them a chance to see how the whole game works, and the fact that losing one hand doesn't mean you've lost the game, that it's just part of a bigger whole. Mix up the tables and the partnerships between activities and classes. Give all the kids a chance to meet everyone else. I can't tell you how many times after a bridge game that I've sat with a group of friends and we've talked about hands, and somebody would say something that would spark some idea in my head about that hand, something I hadn't thought of before. The kids need that option too. They need the chance to kind of get new ideas and meet new people and see a different way of looking at things. And leave them something fun to do between classes. It might be an exercise online to do. It might be dealing out the cards, bidding a hand. Could be anything, playing with some friends. But you don't want a class to end and them to do nothing about bridge until the next class the next week. If you've seen this before, if you're a teacher, you probably have. This was mind altering for me, or the way I teach was first time I saw this, changed everything about how I thought about teaching. I'd been doing some of it, but not all of it. And this convinced me. This is called the cone of learning. And what you see is how people retain information. If you lecture, if you just sat up and lectured the whole time, they learn 5%. That's what they retain. If you lecture and they're reading it, so you've given them a handout or something, 10%. If you lecture, they're reading, and you're presenting on slides like I'm doing or something like that, 20%. If I actually demonstrate something, if I was demonstrating something, they'll retain 30%. If I put them together and they discuss the concept that I've presented, 50%. If they discuss and then do it, practice it themselves, 75%. And if they show others how to do it, 90%. And look what the outcome is. They learn how to analyze, define, create, and evaluate. If we let them discuss, do it themselves, and work with others on it. You know what? That's what we want for bridge players as well, isn't it? So let's look at a class, just a basic class that you can structure. You'll see some words in red, and those are if you had to do it online versus in person versus face-to-face. So let's say we were going to do a class on what should you open. We would present we would remind them the purpose of bidding, the priority contract, and give them some guidelines for choosing an opening bid. They'd have a handout. We'd be talking about it. They'd see a PowerPoint or some slides. We have them now do it. We give them preset 4 hands at each table. Online, you can do it on playingcards.io. We put 4 to 5 students at a table, and we give them 6 or 7 minutes to count their points and choose an opening bid. Then they come back, we review, they hear me ask them what their answers were. Did they have any questions? We might present something if needed, present the answers. Then we say, okay, it's the remainder of the class, deal out some cards, just do 4 random hands, count your points, choose an opening bid. Say if there's a hand that can't open, then think about if it had enough points. If it had 12 points based on their distribution, what would they open? I'm here if you need me. If you need some help, just call me over. Then for take home, they can take a deck of cards, deal out the hands, count the points, pick an opening bid. Tell them if you got a question, if you didn't know what to do or weren't sure you were right, take a photo with your phone or write it down, and we'll look at it next week in class. So how did that work out? We did auditory, visual, then which was the lecturing, the reading, the presenting, right? Then we had them do a demonstration. We had the 4 hands out that they could then look at, count their points, and discuss. Then they did it, counted their points, worked out some more answers, and they worked with each other, the teaching others, under the last one, when they went at the end of the class and worked on the hands. With the technology that's now available online, any class you can teach in the classroom, you can adapt virtually to it. You can teach it online and vice versa. Online has a myriad of options for the kids. It's easy, certainly, to get a large group together to practice and play. But what I get from my students is they prefer face-to-face. And this is adults and kids. I say that online feels like it's not a real game, that it's boring, and that it's not fun. It's not social. They said that even if they were playing with 4 friends online, because they've just got names there and they can't see them or really talk to them, that they feel like they're playing with robots anyway. These are some examples of some of the bridge apps that are available. Remember, for Trickster, they would need to be 13 years old. The ACBL Learn to Play Bridge is on their Learn site, on their regular site. You go to the Learn section. Shark Bridge allow the robots to be changed. You can actually adjust the robot's knowledge, but it's still best if they have 4 of them to play. The mini bridge and declare play only on BBO are great. But I would not recommend BBO for my new players unless they had a foursome to play with. The robots do things that they don't understand, and it leads to frustration. So I'm going to close with just debunking some myths about teaching kids, things that people say all the time that I just feel that aren't true. Bridge is too hard. Nope. In 8 hours, they can learn to bid and play a hand. We did this in summer camp over and over and over. They played the first 4 days, 2 hours a day. They learned. The last day was a game, and they were playing. They just want to play cards. No, they love the strategy. They want to play a game. They actually want to play a game of bridge, not just throw cards. They want apps. I was told they have apps. They want to play with friends and meet new friends. Bidding is too complicated? Not if you stick to the basics. There's always going to be some kids that really love bridge, just like we did. And they're going to want to learn 2 over 1 or precision or squeezes or in plays. And that's going to happen. And I enjoy those kids. I love the fact that they fall in love with the game as much as I did. But there's a very huge portion out there too that just want to be able to play bridge with their friends. Eventually, they might have that drive to get better and better and better. But if you stick to the basics, they can play bridge, they can play with their friends, and they can have a great time doing it. They want to compete. They do like competing. They tell me it's exciting. They like it, but it's not fun. It's like it's a competition. They're more interested in socializing with their friends, making new friends. They can't understand, and it's blah, 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 blah. They understand many of the concepts better than adults do. Okay. They understand the idea of the strategy. They understand majors versus minors. They understand conventional bids. They understand a lot and don't shortchange them. They love bridge. They want to play. You need to just let them absorb what they want to absorb and have fun with it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I gave you some food for thought, some things that you might incorporate into your classes and when you're working with the kids. And I hope to see you at the tables really soon. Thanks for coming.